everyone. Welcome to the session. My name's Alicia. I'm the senior content producer here at E-commerce Expo and Technology for Marketing. So if you have any kind of feedback, thoughts about any of the speakers or content that you've seen here today, please come and grab me after, have a chat, let me know what you think. Really keen to hear your thoughts. But more importantly, we have a very special guest with us today, Elfried, and we're going to be talking all things career movement. So Elfried, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Elfried Samba. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Butterfly Effect. I used to work at Gymshark for about 7 years, so a lot of people know me from my background there, and I'm really, really excited to be speaking to everybody.
Thank you. So just to let you know, guys, we'll be having an audience Q&A at the end, so we'll leave about 5 minutes for that. So start thinking about your questions now. But first, Elfried, I want to kind of kick off the session with something a bit light and interesting. So tell us something about yourself that maybe people in the room might not expect, might be a bit surprising.
Well, a random but Alfred fact would be the fact that everything in my wardrobe is black. So whenever I go on holiday, people think I'm going to a funeral. So effectively, I don't wear any colors, and I always have a cap, a hat, or Air Force Ones. So I pretty much have a uniform attire to everything I do.
Is that like your personal brand, would you say?
I think it's that and borderline laziness, right? So
Yeah.
I don't like making decisions
Mental
about,
load.
Yeah, I don't like
Yeah.
making decisions about things I don't want to think about.
Yeah.
So if somebody told me I looked great in an outfit, I'll just keep that outfit for life. So I take compliments to heart.
Nice, nice. Cool, so Elfried, I kind of want to take a few steps back to kind of like prior Gymshark, your Gymshark journey. So tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into marketing in the first place, and I guess how you kind of became so good at it as well.
You say that. Famous last words. So for some people don't know that I was actually born in the Democratic Republic of Congo, so Central Africa. So you could imagine my shock when we moved to England and we saw snow for the first time, right? So when we moved to the country, we didn't know anybody. We came actually as asylum seekers, and we had to start from a blank canvas. But all my life, I thought I was going to be a doctor like my dad, and then I realized that I was shit at science, and I have to find something else. And then I watched the Steve Jobs keynote in 2007, where he presented the iPhone, and that changed my life forever. I think it was the element of taking something that's very, very complicated and being able to present in a very simple way that my simple mind could understand. I think the art of storytelling, taste making, and community building kind of like caught my eye, especially after I heard about this 23-year-old saying no to $1 billion to Yahoo. His name was Mark Zuckerberg, of course, which I was just like excited about. There was just a new wave of business people that I never saw before, wearing t-shirts, flip-flops, hoodies, and doing some really killer shit. So I think the combination of the storytelling, the community building, and then also I love listening to Jay-Z. He loves to talk about business, and he was one of the first people that explained business in a way that I could understand. So I kind of like put it all together and said, what can I do as a career?
Yeah.
And marketing and later community marketing became my thing.
Yeah, and that kind of follows perfectly onto my next question. So there's probably a lot of people in the room here as well that kind of would aspire and would love to kind of get a job at somewhere like Gymshark. So tell me about how you actually managed to get that job.
So I realized that in a industry as sexy as marketing, everybody wants to go into it because they think that it's really exciting. It is, but it's a lot of hard work. And the thing that separates the good from the great are those that can execute really, really well. And effectively, I thought, if I wanted to go through the front door as everybody else, I'll just be in the queue. So what I did is I just added everybody that worked at Gymshark on LinkedIn, and I just created content that they would all like. And slowly but surely, they started to engage with my post, look at my profile, and surprise, surprise, a couple of months later, I got an interview with the brand.
Fantastic. So it's all about networking.
Well, it's not just about networking, it's all about demonstrating what value can actually add. I think a lot of the time, people forget that with platforms like LinkedIn, it gives you the opportunity to showcase your initiative, how you approach things, how proactive you are, how you execute actually says a lot more about who you are as a potential employee than just going through an interview. So the more you can demonstrate what you actually do, as opposed to talk about what you do, the better.
Yeah, 100%. And going kind of more deep into your experience at Gymshark, could you tell us about maybe one or two of your kind of key challenges that you had there and how you kind of overcame them?
I think the first one was going from being an executor to a leader. I talk a lot on my LinkedIn post about like micromanagers and how that's really, really bad. And the thing is, when I first started in my career, I just didn't want to be left out of the fun, right? I loved the creative process, I loved getting my hands dirty, I loved getting involved, but that was not scalable. I had to be able to work through my team, because at the end of the day, I almost like use the reference of a sports team, for example. A manager of a sports team can only influence the game before the game, at halftime, and at the end. If they have to lace up their boots to get onto the pitch when the team's down, then you haven't done your job, right? So effectively, I had to learn how to develop a philosophy for execution so that the team can work, I could work through my team. And that allowed us to be super scalable and allowed me to be outside of the room. The other side was, I think a lot of people use the word community as a buzzword, but a lot of people think that you build your own community. You don't build one. You find one that's underrepresented, and you earn their trust. And the best way to earn their trust is not actually just through content, it's through action. So a lot of the times, instead of us saying, what are we going to say to represent our community, it was, what do we do? So what barriers exist within the fitness community that nobody else is caring about, that means the world to the audience, that we can take down on their behalf? And therefore, I don't know whether you guys have seen recently, Gymshark did a collaboration tackling knife crime in London, where effectively they confiscated a lot of knives and then they turned those into gym equipment, right?
Oh, wow.
So it's taking something that's happening within a region, something that's aligned with what the brand stands for, and then bringing those two things together. And I think that's super, super important, especially off the back of what was happening during the pandemic and during Black Lives Matter, when everybody was making statements. It only makes sense if you can influence the cause in your own way.
Yeah, and that it's meaningful.
Yeah.
100%. So kind of stepping forward now, so you've done Gymshark, what were your kind of, the key factors that influenced your decision to kind of leave Gymshark and start your own thing?
To be honest, I think in very simple terms, it was escaping being comfortable. I think a lot of the times, you want to be in this space where you just like feel like you're constantly learning and growing, right?
Yeah.
And I think after 7 years at Gymshark, it kind of like felt like Hermione in Harry Potter, the Prisoner of Azkaban, right?
Okay,
When she had
I'll go with you.
When she had that like machine where she could see, like she knew things are happening already because she's been there before, right?
Yeah.
So every year, like clockwork, in January this would happen, in March this would happen. So you're predicting the future, but you're not really like changing anything.
Yeah.
So I had to look within myself and say, actually, if I'm going to leave this great opportunity that I have right now, I have a great job, I have a great life, I have a great team, it has to be something that's worth it. So I use this model called an ikigai, which is all about finding your one true purpose. It's a Japanese philosophy, and it's all about 4 main questions. What's your passion? What are you good at? What have you been paid to do, and what does the world need, right? And I think that in the middle of that is what your true purpose is, and when you can add the most value. And I think with Gymshark, I ticked off 3 of those, right? But at the end of the day, the world didn't need more leggings, right? Effectively, what we needed was a creative company that's built by diverse talent, because we keep saying that diversity makes business sense. It's time to prove that. So that's why I started Butterfly.
Yeah, brilliant. So there's kind of obviously, again, marketers in the room. So how can marketers kind of assess whether they're truly ready to, whether it's go freelance, start their own agency, kind of start consultancy? How can they assess within themselves whether they're ready to do that?
Do you know what? I think there was a crazy stat in the US about the fact that like 40 or 45% of people in the US are doing like side hustles, right?
Yeah.
With everything that's happening in the world, the microeconomics of the world, and the fact that there's AI technology, tech is getting sophisticated, more layoffs are happening than ever before. So it helps to have a backup plan, right? So first and foremost, it helps that you have your core role, and if you can develop something that you can do at the side to build up your skills, I always advise that. Now, going back to that ikigai alignment, right? If you're somewhere that is not aligned with what your true purpose is, you'll always feel it. I do not recommend taking a career because you've seen somebody else do it, or going into a department or a role because you saw somebody else do that, or even because it's the most profitable or flavor of the month right now. If you're able to figure out your ikigai and figure out how can I apply that to an industry that will always exist, right?
Yeah.
So if you break it down to simple terms, people will always want to be fit and healthy, So it makes sense to go to industry that's fit and healthy. People will always want to look after themselves. So health, beauty will always be the case, right?
Yeah.
But then if you're making a business all built on AI technology simply, that's the flavor of the month.
Yeah.
And I guess it depends on how long you want to be in business for. If you want to be in business for the rest of your life, then pick a department or an industry that's going to be there for the rest of your life. If you want to build something, sell it, and then sit on a beach somewhere, then look at the flavor of the month, aim to be the best there, make a lot of noise so everybody knows that you're responsible, and get out.
Yeah.
I think it depends on what you want to do.
Yeah, it's individual.
But the most important thing is staying true to yourself and doing something that's aligned with your superpower.
Yeah, 100%. And you mentioned briefly about kind of skills. What kind of personal and professional skills do you think is crucial for someone considering starting their own business, do you think?
Do you know what? I think there's 3 things that anybody can do, but then everybody often ignores. I actually think to be great at anything, I think there's this podcaster that said he was really, really successful, and somebody asked him, if you were to lose everything today, what's going to get you back to where you are right now? And he said that there's 2 main ingredients, and I added a 3rd, right? So the 2 ingredients were knowledge, being curious and obsessed with learning, because things change all the time. As long as the moment you stop learning is the moment you're starting to go out of business, right? So you have to have an obsession with being curious and learning. We actually had a sign at the Gymshark office that said, evolve or die, right? And one of our key values was that we need to stay and maintain the mentality of the 19-year-old Ben, because that's the person that's going to take us out of business. Not our competitors that we see, is the kid in the garage that's cooking up the next Gymshark idea and spotting the holes that we can't see.
Yeah.
So we're better off taking ourselves out of business than somebody else, right?
Yeah.
And that comes with the curiosity and intensity of learning. The next one is all about network. Who you know takes you a very, very far place. If you think about it, most people's superpower is their network and who they know, right? And I think that if you invest in your knowledge and you invest in your network, that will put you in a really good place. But then the 3rd one that I added was all about consistency. Just showing up every single day. I actually seen a Arsene Wenger podcast, and he basically said, he said that when they're trying to pick which footballers are about to make it, they don't even look at their skill. They look at the difference on the motivation levels, right? And they basically say the stamina of the motivation is more impactful than the intensity of the motivation, right? So if you're relying on motivation to get you through, you're probably not going to make it.
Yeah.
You are better off relying on consistency.
Yeah.
So the 3rd one is just showing up every day and executing every day, learning, growing your network, and just showing up. And that's all it is. And anybody can do that. It's not a skill, it's just a commitment that I think that everybody should adopt.
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree with that. So moving now more into obviously your agency world, which is very exciting, because it's 2 years now, right? Nearly 2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is totally exciting. So tell us a little bit about maybe some of your key challenges and successes that you've had there as well.
So I think the first one was we have an all remote model. So we have no office, and we have people in 5 different countries straight off the bat, clients in 3 different continents straight off the bat, and a lot of the people that we got on board we've never worked with before, right? So we had to figure out how we bridge the gap between being completely digital and being physical. And by the way, we're in a service business, right?
Yeah.
So effectively, relationships and seeing people in person matters.
Yeah.
It's not just about how great your ideas are. It's about whether people feel that you're the right people for the job because of literally that kinesthetic nature.
Yeah.
It's the reason why I just landed from LA, is because we recognize that whilst you can do the work really well remotely and you can save a lot of cost doing that, you still have to invest in those personal relationships, going back to that network aspect. And it just can't be digital. If you're asking people to part ways with £500,000 to £2 million, you better shake their hand.
Yeah.
You better be there for them to know that you're real and you're not AI, right?
Yeah.
And I think the other side was all about understanding, because I was in the agency world before, didn't quite get it. I thought that actually the best idea should just win. But ultimately what we realized is that sometimes the reason why things don't push through is not because the pitch was wrong. And in fact, usually after the pitch, everyone's super excited.
Yeah.
It's the fact that the pitch that you deliver is not the pitch.
Yeah.
The pitch that who you're delivering to delivers is the pitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's all about simplifying ideas and concepts in a way that anybody can understand. I think a lot of the times as marketeers, we think that the brilliance, the excitement of the idea, and the bells and whistles that we deliver is the thing that's going to win us through. But you forget, the person that's going to deliver that to the CEO is probably going to deliver that verbally. So if you cannot summarize your ideas in a tweet, then it's less likely to be signed off, especially during this challenging times when money's tight and people are not looking to experiment that much.
Yeah.
You have to simplify ideas and make sure that you focus on impact and not just creativity. It's where creativity meets great ideation is why I think that practicality and great ideation is why I think that the right synergy is.
Yeah, some tips about pitching there as well, that's fantastic. So obviously we're here at Technology for Marketing, so it would be silly for me to not kind of ask a question about tech.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of see tech and AI kind of helping entrepreneurs going forward at the moment in marketing?
So I think there's a lot of people in the creative industry that are scared of AI technology, and I think that it's going to take away creative jobs. Now, if you want, I love the film 300, right? And if you want to have the audacity to believe that with a small team you can take on a huge army, you have to use all the weapons that you've got, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when IQ is being democratized because technology is becoming accessible, the thing that's going to differentiate brands of the future, creative companies of the future, will be that EQ, right? So how do you leverage IQ to give you efficiency, clarity, like I use ChatGPT in a really weird way. So whenever I'm trying to suggest something to the business, I will write down my idea on ChatGPT, and then I'll say, imagine if Steve Jobs, Einstein, Jeff Bezos were all in my brainstorm critiquing my idea, how will they put holes in my concept, right? So then I don't need a C-suite. I can just get the smartest people in the world to critique my idea, and I have brainstorms by myself, right? Creative people are able to say, do you know what? Everybody puts an input and expects an output. We're going to create with the technology to just further the stress testing of our ideas.
Yeah.
So actually now, instead of having 5 people doing a brainstorm, you have 1 person and the 5 most brilliant minds that ever existed.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that creative people should use the technology as a superpower. It's a steroid, right? And it allows you to be able to, especially if you're like heavy EQ and you have the self-awareness to believe that, you know what, maybe my ideas are not always right. Let me find people that are hypercritical to put holes in it so that I can anticipate what the people that I'm presenting to are going to say. But I'm not just going to anticipate what they're going to say, I'm going to anticipate what the smartest people in the world would say. That will make your ideas super bulletproof.
Yeah, I think I use ChatGPT like literally every single day now.
Oh yeah.
It's the best.
Yeah, I just put a block into just like, because what it is you're thinking about how you think, right?
Yeah.
So for you to be a really good prompter, you have to actually be very, very vigilant about how you think and how you get to ideas.
Yeah.
If it's just random, then you'll find it really, really difficult. But effectively what creativity is sampling, right? Just like in music, you see one thing that's worked somewhere, and then you apply it to something else, and you put it together. That's the process that your mind goes into, right? So effectively, the more references you can get, the more creative that you get.
Yeah.
So why don't you use ChatGPT to further that?
Yeah, 100%. So, that's brilliant, Elfried. So, kind of before we come to audience Q&A, have a little think about if you've got any questions for Elfried. You obviously now have about, I think it's something crazy, like 200,000 followers on LinkedIn or something mad, and I'm like, wow. Which is super impressive, but how would you kind of recommend someone starting a business that maybe doesn't have that kind of influence and that amount of followers and that platform?
I think, so if you have to ask someone like Ben, like what he feels is the most important thing, and the number one thing is self-awareness. I think the issue, I always like to use sports references, right? Most people, if they had the money to buy their own football team, they would not only put themselves in the starting lineup of the team, they'll make themselves the striker, right? But then that's the issue, right?
Yeah.
Your team will lose because you don't have the best players on the pitch. And I think that a lot of the times, leaders or founders go into a business wanting to be the main character of the business. Sometimes you're just the facilitator. Sometimes you're not even in the squad. Your goal should be, what is the idea, what are we looking to achieve, and what pieces do we need, whether with or without me, to be able to win, right? And a lot of the time, you're the one that's in the way of the furtherment of your business, right? So it starts with self-awareness, and therefore the Ikigai helps you get that self-awareness. I think the next is to try to actually develop a good product, right? So my co-founder and I met working at a nightclub in Birmingham called Gatecrasher, right? We used to hand out flyers, right? Now, we were not particularly good, but we had the best club, right? So everybody else was much better at selling than us, but then people will go into their club and then leave out the back door and never go back. We would just give them the flyers, they'll go in, not only will they stay, they'll put their phone out and tell everybody else about it. So you actually have to try to build a product that serves a purpose. And it starts, forget the marketing. And if you do marketing, the first P of the 4 Ps is product, right? So your product makes the rest of the marketing process so much easier. So actually create a service or a product that is actually good. And then when it comes to the marketing element, get good at understanding where people's mental attention is and where it is underpriced. And try to be nimble and more nimble than the bigger competitors that exist. All it is a platform comes, somebody goes in there early, capitalize on it, everybody else comes in, people get pissed off because it's oversaturated, they go somewhere else, and as other people capitalize. All you have to do is measure where the attention is for your audience and double down before everybody else gets there. And that's what you need to try to do. If you are on Instagram and then a thing called TikTok comes in, go on to TikTok. If everybody's on normal TikTok and a thing called TikTok Live comes in, go on to Live, right? Wherever there's underpriced attention and you can get to a mass amount of people at lower cost than everybody else, and it's only reliant on your creativity and innovation, it's worth your time to spend your time there. And I think that, unfortunately, the market is the market, right? None of us have the right to stay on top of our game forever. We have to earn it, right? And the only way that you earn it is if you don't get comfortable with where you're at, you actually get obsessed with taking yourself out of business rather than somebody else.
And I guess that ties back into your knowledge piece as well and the learning piece as well.
Always learning. I spend most of my time going to spaces that people say that makes you no money, but then that's where we get our greatest innovation. It's where the best talent are, it's where things are actually happening. I spend an ungodly amount of time on my phone. I still do all my LinkedIn posts, all my LinkedIn responses. I spend time seeing where culture actually moves. Because as soon as I turned 25, I realized I was getting old, right? Because first, the slang I was using was the popular slang. And then I used a piece of slang and somebody said, ugh, right? And then I realized, I'm no longer the person that dictates what cool is. I have to have the humility to learn. So a lot of the times, I had a policy in at the Gymshark team that if I cannot give you a reason as to why we shouldn't further an idea, it's a test and learn, or I'm just being old. So let's test it anyway. Right? There was so much outrageous things that at the start I was like, it's weird to me, I don't get it, but I've asked 3 people and they get it, so maybe I don't have the best idea in the room, right? And a lot of the times as leaders, again, we think that we have to be the main character. You are supposed to create a platform for other curious, tenacious, hungry people who will be better than you to come on and that's the thing that I got really good at. Leading a team was my crutch. It's become my superpower. Right? Because I feel like that's the thing that's going to further innovation for any organization.
I think that's a fab place to end, to be honest. Does anyone have any questions for Elfried? And we'll get a microphone to you. If you do, also when you come on the mic, just say your name and your company as well. But pop your hand up if you'd like to ask a question. Do we have any? If we don't, that's totally fine. I've got some backup questions. You got a question? Oh. I was going to point at you then. That's absolutely fine. So, like I said earlier, you've kind of hit the 2-year mark with your business now. What are your kind of future plans with your business, and how do you kind of continue to grow and adapt? I know you mentioned a little bit about kind of growth mindset and all that kind of stuff. So, what's your plan with your business?
So, going back to self-awareness, I had to make sure that I tapped into my why. Everybody knows the Simon Sinek why. And for the longest time, what I thought was my why wasn't actually my why. If anything, it is a lot simpler than that. So I love to create what I wish existed with the people that I love to spend time with, right? So I thought about the idea of having a creative agency powered by diverse talent, taking on and working with the biggest companies and other agencies in the world, right? And out the blocks, the first 12 months, we worked with the likes of Netflix, Bumble, Cheesecake Factory, McDonald's, Nike, WeTransfer. Like, we've just done Square. We've done a really great job in that was our first 12 months. But then we realized that actually that's super cool, but really what I love is the underdog story, right? So I said, actually, with our agency, why don't we start a unicorn factory, right? Because we're really, really good at understanding the ingredients of building community and allowing a small brand to go from point A to point B. So why don't we create an infrastructure where not only can we support it from a creative standpoint, but also financially and also with tech.
Yeah.
So actually, the businesses of the future that we back and trust, we can actually get them into an incubator system to grow them. And again, I said that I feel that the superpower of tomorrow is going to be EQ and storytelling.
Yeah.
So ultimately, VCs and companies that can have the best talent in that field are the ones that are going to birth the unicorns of tomorrow. So we said, let's do that. So that's the journey that we're on right now.
That sounds so exciting.
Oh, it might fail, and I could be a complete lunatic.
Well, that's
but
a whole
hey.
other conversation about failure, isn't it, as well? That's a...
And I'll tell you something. So I'm Congolese, so grew up in an African household. Failure is not an answer, right? I didn't cut any corners. I didn't drop out of school. I went into school, I have to get my grades. Into university, I have to get my grades. My parents, you have to be a doctor. I had all of that, right? So I was scared of risk, right? The idea of not having a salary every month scared the shit out of me, right? And then what happened was I said, you know what have you got to lose? And then if this fails, you can always get a job, right? And then I took that leap. And then every single day, I get more and more comfortable with ambiguity, right? And now you get excited by it, because then it gives you that urgency to keep innovating and to keep staying forward. Because although the reality is you'll be okay, right? The sky won't fall, and at worst you'll learn the biggest lessons that you'll ever learn in your life, right? That's enriching enough. We pay thousands at university to get that, right? So you may as well do it as a business and get practical experience. It's the same thing. I always say that going into university is your theoretical degree, working somewhere is your practical degree, and starting your business is when you actually put those two things together. And effectively what we always say is, when we're looking at top talent, we always realize that educated talent that are great executors are always the top tier. The reason why is because they can articulate what is it that they did and tell it to somebody else. The next is people that are not educated, but they do stuff. Because they can be taught, right? And then everybody else, it's very, very difficult. But then to the people that are focused on like, how do I educate and how do I storytell how I educate so I can inform other people, that's what's scalable, right? And those things I didn't learn at university, I didn't learn it at working, I just learned it failing every single day until I just said, well, why don't we do this? Right? So you can't work at our company if you just have IQ. I got ChatGPT for that. You have to be a storyteller. If you can't storytell, like there's a guy that does sports data, like he scribbles sports data in story form, right? I reached out to him and I said, I want you to be like our director of data, because you're getting these really complicated things and you're able to articulate in a way that my simple brain can understand. You know why people have a lot of meetings? To clear up clutter. Because people use so much jargon and bullshit that people have to have meetings to align on the jargon and bullshit. We have no jargon in our company. Simple terms, right? And those all came from failing, because we're realizing that we're spending a lot of our times aligning, right? If you have to put a dollar sign on how much it costs you to have a meeting in a business, a fuckload. And that's because people don't have clarity. So what you understand is that the enemy of progress is clutter and overcomplication. The more simple you can make your business, the power of 3. We're only going to do one thing a year in 3 ways. That's it. If it's good enough for Apple, it's good enough for everybody else. Right?
I think that's a good place to end, to be honest, Elfried. Thank you so much. Can we have a round of applause, please, for Elfried? Thank you. Are you hanging around for a little bit afterwards if anyone wants to come say hi?
Hey, I'm here.
Lovely stuff. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thanks.